factor. I'm going to give you a word, and in the comments write down the first 3 words that come to mind as I say it.
Okay.
Okay, so the word is cat.
This is the Ellie
And Lee,
show.
Okay, so today we're gonna be covering the final personality trait, which is openness to experience.
Yay, openness. What is openness?
So it's split up into 2 components. The first being intellect and the second one being openness. So when it comes to intellect, they make it very clear that intellect is not the same thing as IQ.
Okay.
Because IQ is a measure of your brain's general processing capacity, but intellect here looks at the personality trait of intellect.
So what does it mean, like personality trait of intellect?
So in this case, it's the measure of the interest in abstract ideas.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, things that aren't very straightforward and simple. You prefer to engage with those sort of things. I think I could say that those people that like, sci-fi sort of things like Star Wars or, medieval kind of fantasy.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be a higher intellect.
So people who just live in reality and refuse to think about some daydreaming, they are not intellect in this case? I mean, not as IQ, but as a personality.
Yeah, I think so. So it's just like if you only contain your thoughts or the things that you're interested in to things that are very realistic, then that shows less in the intellect personality trait.
It's interesting because when you articulating the personality like that, it's kind of make me feel the people around me. So there are some friends who don't like to be asked those kind of ideas, like abstract ideas, say, we don't need to think about it because we need to focus on what we have right now in front of us. So I usually enjoy my time with people who likes to talk about abstract ideas.
I think that could show that you have high intellect. And then in the case of those
as a
that
personality.
and then in the case of those that don't have high intellect, then it's maybe they would seem more practical.
I think it's like good and bad always.
Yeah, I think it kind of leads into the second part of openness to experience, which is just openness. And then openness deals with creativity.
Like an artist.
Yeah, exactly. So an artist would be more likely to be high in openness. And it's just like if you have an appreciation for art or that sort of thing, then you would probably be more open. So in my case, I don't have an appreciation for art, but I would still say I'm high in openness, because while I might not be interested in looking at what someone has drawn or painted or whatever the case may be, I really think that looking at cars to me is a form of art, and I think it is, definitely. So I have been to car museums where I can happily spend like 2 hours just comparing and staring at the body lines of cars.
So for me, I like to go to museum, and I obviously can appreciate the art, except modern art.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, because modern art is a waste of time.
Oh, we need to cut this one.
No,
we don't
we're
want
not
to
cutting
offend
it.
anyone.
Modern art sucks.
I think we are not intelligent enough to
Have you
understand,
seen-
or we are just
Have you
normal,
seen-
but the art is going.
Have you seen, there's one where a person just put on display an upside down toilet and made
I
millions.
was thinking about it.
And someone taped a banana, and then that was considered art.
It's really hard to understand. So I think I used to like to draw some avatars when I was young. I like to create some clothes, but not anymore.
Yeah, but I think the difference is that it's talking about how you view creativity. You like creative things, or you like to be creative. This again, same with IQ, is not saying that if you are high in openness, therefore you're a good artist. It's just saying that you appreciate those things. So we have a bit of a question for you, and we'd like you to write down your answers in the comments below. So this is to test if you have that openness factor. I'm going to give you a word, and in the comments write down the first 3 words that come to mind as I say it. Okay, so the word is cat. So in the case where you thought of something very similar, so maybe cat, you thought of tail, or you thought of fur or you thought of fish, it's related, then that shows that maybe your openness isn't as high. But if it's really high, then when you thought of cat, you would be thinking something weird like ladder. Yeah, because if you think of cat, then maybe you were thinking of superstition. If you think of superstition, then you think of walking under a ladder. So, making those large leaps of thought, that can be shown as being more open.
So let's just share the first word that came to your mind.
If I say cat, then I think of whiskers.
Whiskers. Okay. So I was thinking about the raining, because the weather right now is raining. And then there is an English phrase, raining cats and dog. But it's kind of linked, right?
Yeah, to people that have those guesses that seem really unrelated, to them it's still related. But it's just the way they relate things are very different. It's not as obvious. Yeah.
Because I always thought that I can link thoughts to thoughts a lot. So I thought, okay, so maybe I am high in openness because my thought hops around from one point to other point. But maybe not.
So in the book, the author always tries to relate why these personality factors are linked to some kind of thing that you can see occurring in the brain, some kind of chemistry, or just different kinds of activations. But in the case of openness, so far it's been the hardest one to lock down into a very specific thing that's occurring.
Okay.
If you're enjoying this video so far,
please like and subscribe.
So, and then the descriptor that he gave for openness to experience is having more artistic sensibility or just kind of uncommon thought. And then that's sort of the thing you see with artists. A lot of artists, they don't live their life in the most traditional sense. They live it in a way that people maybe don't understand or, they don't agree with. It's like, if you read history about a lot of artists, the lives they kind of lived are, to most people, seem a bit out there or a bit crazy. But maybe to them, it's perfectly normal. So if you look at someone like Billie Eilish, she's a really popular singer at the moment. And I would consider her being high in openness to experience, because a lot of the visuals in her music videos and also her lyrics, aren't straightforward, but they have deeper meaning.
Yeah, they do.
Right? So in that case, people might not be able to fully understand her, the way she dresses or the way she speaks. They might find it very unconventional.
Yeah.
And in her case, that's kind of what's alluring to most people.
Okay.
So in the book, they always give like the extreme cases where it can become something very negative. So in this case of openness, people who are extremely high tend to have some kind of mental issues. So, so let's go back before that. People that are also quite high tend to have unusual beliefs. And then they also tend to some form of psychosis. So this is losing contact with reality and like having hallucinations.
Yeah, it's called schizophrenia, right?
I think so. And so like if you had to do a test with them, people that are really high in openness would tend to report more that they've had unusual experiences. Like maybe a picture was moving or they heard someone talking when there was no one there, that sort of thing. And then there's also found that there's been high rates of mental illness with poets and artists, back in the day.
I see. It makes sense because poets and artists are kind of far from reality.
Yeah, well, their ideas, the way their mind works.
Okay. So I was thinking, like, if I have any. And I remember sometimes I do see hallucination.
Really?
When I get deprived of my sleep.
Oh, okay. But I think that's for everyone. Yeah.
I remember I went to the theater and I was too sleepy because it was America, like for a trip, and still had jet lag.
Oh, okay.
And I had to open my eyes, but I couldn't resist. So I remember I talked to my mom and it was so vivid, but that wasn't real. So like sometimes it's like just 2 times in my life, but it was kind of really weird.
So I think for me, I've had those experiences, but never when I'm awake. So I've had like dreams that are incredibly realistic. Like I remember in high school, I've had dreams where I went to school, had conversations with people, to the point that there'd be times when I'd go to school and ask like, did we have this conversation?
No, we didn't.
Yeah, so it was blended into reality.
But like some people do that. Like some people ask me
Yeah.
before, like come to me and then like, did we talk about this? Oh, never mind, there was one dream. And I think I have done it too.
Please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps us out.
Thanks for watching. See you.
you.